If everyone could take a minute and think about the word insecurities. In this day and age, it's used quite commonly. But what does it mean to you? What are you insecure about? We all struggle with insecurities, whether it's about your personality, your features, or what someone else thinks about you. And I can say from experience, it's not very fun. We are told that technology, social media, and basically everything in the 21st century gives us an inflated sense of self. Yet, most of us don't seem to walk around feeling like we are all that great. In fact, if there is one emotion that overwhelmingly shapes our self image and influences our behavior, that is insecurity. Hi, my name is Mansha Tiwari, and today I would like to talk to you all about insecurity and how I was able to break out of its bubble and begin my journey to becoming a happier and more self assured person. If you could enter the minds of the people around you, it is likely that you would encounter waves of insecurity. A recent survey found that almost 80% of the people questioned experienced hurtful, self critical, and negative thoughts almost on a daily basis. School can play a crucial role in your confidence throughout life, especially if you grew up with bad acne, being overweight or too skinny, or speech impediments. It's unfortunate, but other adolescents can be quite cruel and often put insecure people in a corner. However, more than often, these bullies who spread uncalled for hate to others are some of the most insecure people themselves. They have very low self esteem, but the way they cope with it is by hurting others and pulling them down. Although I'm still young, up until recently, my insecurities were a big problem in my life. Let me start from the beginning. Up until fourth grade, I was a rather carefree child. I mean, weren't we all? However, once I reached fourth grade, things such as who was popular, who listened to what music, who watched what TV shows became more important. And I, along with my fellow peers, began to implement these things in the way we acted and the things we did. I am lucky that I've never had to deal with bullying, but there was always this constant judgment and pressure to act a certain way, to do certain things, to like certain things that all of us could feel. But the ironic thing is that it was placed on us by each other. School could have been a much happier experience for many people if they had simply let go of these things and just enjoyed themselves. But I can still say that elementary school and sixth grade were a pretty good experience for me. But then, seventh grade, our virtual school year and the pandemic began. And along with that, my insecurities magnified. They were related to what other people perceive of me, whether it was based on something rational or just me overthinking. As an extrovert and someone who is energized by social interaction, practically to the point of dependence on it, quarantine was a little rough. After we stopped meeting people, texting and calling became our means of communication. To those of you who might not understand why this is a problem, allow me to explain. One major difference in how we used to interact with people pre-quarantine versus how we interact with them now is that we really get to pick and choose who we want to talk to and who we want to stay in contact with. More than often, I would be the first to reach out to others, and whenever someone messaged me, I would respond with a rather lengthy message and ask questions of my own to try to keep the conversation going. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad thing. In some ways, it was good because it helped me maintain many of my friendships throughout quarantine and even forge some new ones. But it wasn't until recently that I started to see how being like this was affecting me. Let me ask you all this. You know those people who you like them a lot, they're great friends, great to hang out with, but they are the driest texters ever. You text them a whole paragraph, and then they reply with one or two words or the dreaded one-word response. Okay. These type of people, especially if I didn't know them too well or if I was unsure about what they thought of me, were my worst nightmare. As soon as I got one of these responses, I would analyze the whole situation, trying to figure out where I may have said something that made them uninterested in the conversation, or worse, they secretly didn't like me. These types of thoughts would completely take up my mental space, and I absolutely hated that feeling. It was like a knot or a pit churning in my stomach and making me feel sick. The part that I look back on now and cringe about, though, is that sometimes these people were utter nobodies in my life. Let me give you an example. There was a girl last year who, for the sake of her privacy, let's call her Caroline. Caroline and I were friends, but we didn't know each other too well. We didn't have many mutual friends or any classes together. Last year, school ended rather abruptly, and none of us were expecting that we would be at home for another year. A couple of months into quarantine, a friend of mine mentioned that Caroline had said I was annoying at some point, and I freaked out. One thing I have come to realize is how casually we use words like annoying to describe other people, but when it's used against us, it becomes one of the worst insults. I had a way to contact Caroline, but she wasn't too active on that platform. So for the next couple of months, I was very, very insecure about her. All I had heard from a source that, looking back on, wasn't even reliable was that she thought I was annoying. But somehow, in my mind, I was thinking that she completely hated me. A couple of months later, I was able to contact Caroline from another platform. Believe me when I say my heart was racing as I messaged her. However, she almost instantly replied back, and I could see that she was genuinely happy to hear from me. So basically, that meant I had wasted so much time overthinking over someone who hadn't even thought about me in months. However, if you asked me today, if would I go back and do the same thing to, like, as of now, I probably would. But I wouldn't do it just for the sake of having everyone like me. I would do it because today Caroline is actually a good friend of mine who actually means something to me. Insecurities are often irrational, or they're based on something rational, but taken to the next level. However, when you are dealing with insecurity, this is much harder to understand. You hyperfixate on that one thing or what that one person thinks, and you start to believe that that's what defines you. I can say with confidence that that is not true, but I know that for anyone dealing with this, that's much harder to understand. It's like, you know these things. You know that logically what that one person thinks does not mean that you suck and no one likes you. It doesn't mean that you're a horrible person. And you know by having that mindset and thinking that way, you're only hurting yourself. But you can't help it and it's never going to change. For the longest time, this is what I believed. I am so, so, so lucky to have wonderful people in my life who were there for me. They gave me advice, cheered me up. But more than often, I would take their advice, try to implement it, and then let it go, telling myself, this isn't going to work, nothing can help with this situation. But at the end of the day, your insecurities are a mental battle, something that only you feel no matter how much you try to explain it to others. And that is the reason that you are the only one who can get yourself out of it. The way that I got out of this vicious cycle is something that all of you probably already know, but trust me, it is far more effective than it seems. I started to keep myself busier and put my time into meaningful things and activities. What pushed me to do this is that I realized that even though all the people in my life who are supporting me are there for me, their advice is not going to help me unless I decide to help myself. Unless I decide to change my mindset, to stop letting these things affect me, to take back the control in my life and focus on the more important aspects, this will never end. And I so desperately wanted to be rid of it. So that's what I did. And that is why I am confident that anyone struggling with this can too. I started to make to-do lists and schedules for myself. I set goals for what I wanted to accomplish. Now, this might sound a little bit extra, but it helped me feel more in control of my life. And I also just felt more productive, like I was doing something. And this something is meaningful, and it's going to help me grow as a person and learn. But I'm going to be completely honest. The first couple of days, I was met with disappointment. I don't know about the rest of you, but ever since quarantine, my productivity has suffered a steep decline. So jumping straight back into doing a bunch of productive things was honestly just weird. It felt odd. The first couple of days, my insecurities did not disappear overnight. They were still a lingering thought or a feeling, as I would say. But it did get better. And because time truly is the best healer, a day passed, and then a week passed, and then months started to go by. It's not that I didn't have bad days where I was sucked into overthinking again, but I wasn't completely overwhelmed by horrible feelings all the time. I wasn't constantly thinking, what does this person think? What does this person think? And honestly, that's all I wanted. Now, I'm not saying, even today, I do get insecure. And it's not that I don't care about what others think at all. But one important thing to learn from this is that it's so essential to let go of those people who you put in so much effort for, but who never give it back. And when I say let go, I don't mean you have to cut them off, never talk to them again. But you need to let go of that emotional attachment you have to them, that pedestal that you've put them up on, that you're giving so much value to their thoughts. It's hard, but it's one of the most vital steps for anyone dealing with this. And if you do, then in the end, you will feel so much lighter and so much happier. One of the things that I personally took away from this experience is that although as a social person, it's okay for me to talk to as many people as I like, as often as I like, but I need to remember who the important people are in my life, the ones that actually matter. At the end of the day, everyone does have insecurities, but it's how you approach them that really defines who you are. It's hard, but you don't have to let them take control of you and break you. Rather, you can learn from them and learn how to let go. It will take time, but in the end, it will be so, so, so worth it. You can break through this bubble and be free of the insecurities that weigh you down. Enjoy and relish that freedom and happiness. Thank you.